Welcome back to Nature Labs and our live coverage of the Federal Liberal Leadership Convention. Now you have a better idea of how both liberals and conservatives elect leaders of their parties at the federal level. You understand that it's both a just and democratic process, even if it is still a fair debate to discuss whether Justin Trudeau should have resigned as Prime Minister early and whether it's appropriate for the governing federal party to be conducting a leadership race at a time when Canada's sovereignty is being threatened. It's of course also fair debate to be concerned about the impact of foreign interference on a leadership race. And indeed, in this leadership race, two candidates have been expelled in part because of concerns of foreign interference, one before the race even began and one about halfway through. But to ensure that tonight's vote is secure and that foreign actors with bad intentions couldn't alter the outcome of the race, the restrictions on how people could vote was a lot more serious. And that's led to some concerns that everybody who signed up to be members of the Federal Liberal Party to vote in this election, in fact, weren't able to cast their ballot because the verification process was a bit more complicated than they assumed it would be. Will that impact the outcome of tonight's race? That remains to be seen. But your big question you probably have right now is, who exactly are the candidates and what do they stand for? Well, let's run through the candidate list on who's on the final ballot tonight in tonight's leadership race. Of course, that includes Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada and governor of the Bank of England. He's the presumed frontrunner. He's one of the two heavyweights in this race, as we discussed in the video. Mark Carney is widely assumed to likely be able to pull this victory out on the first ballot. We'll get into that more in a bit. But certainly he's considered the candidate because of his economic credentials who might be best equipped to lead this party into a federal election, giving the Liberals a real shot at retaining government and being able to negotiate with Trump, U.S. President Donald Trump, in the face of his tariff threats and other threats to Canada's sovereignty. The other heavyweight in the race, of course, is Chrystia Freeland. She is, of course, was the former Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, former Finance Minister of Canada, and has, in many ways, was Justin Trudeau's right-hand woman in the government for the last several years. Now, she carries the baggage of that government, which could be a concern in a federal election and might even be a concern within this Liberal leadership race, where many party members are tired of the Justin Trudeau leadership ways. Whether that's fair or not is an open question, but most certainly Chrystia Freeland, who is a former journalist and a staunch supporter of defending Ukraine in the face of the illegal Russian invasion, still is a strong candidate and again one of those two heavyweights in the race tonight. The third candidate, Karina Gould, is the former House Leader in the Liberal government for the last several years. She is the youngest candidate in this race. Let's call her the dark horse. Doesn't mean that she has no shot of winning, she just has a long shot of winning. Her credentials are more about that she's a fresh face, a new face, brings new ideas to the table. On top of which, because of her age, in many ways she's been captivating the imagination of millennial voters. Of course, that's an important cohort in a federal election. It's also an important cohort in an election like this, especially if older voters are struggling with the registration process and it's millennials, in fact, who cast the most ballots. Will that impact her odds? We'll see. But if I were to place odds here, I think that she's got a slight chance of coming through in tonight's election, although certainly a long shot compared to that of Mark Carney. But certainly if the fundraising numbers and her reported membership signups are to be believed, then she might in fact place second in this race, despite the fact that Chrystia Freeland is considered to be the co-heavyweight with Mark Carney. The fourth candidate in this race, of course, is Frank Baylis. He's a businessman from Montreal, a former MP, and he's kind of the no-hope candidate, if you will. He has almost no chance of winning tonight's race. He's really in this race, as we discussed in the video, to position himself for his future in politics and in business, and of course to carry some weight when he talks about policy issues going forward, whether that's in the Federal Liberal Party or even outside of politics. And I think he's run a very energetic campaign. He's turned a lot of heads, and he's certainly positioned himself as a potential leader in the future for this party, and certainly has framed many policy issues that might even be implemented by the next Liberal Party should they have a chance to form government once again. So those are the candidates. We expect this race will be settled probably on the first ballot, probably for Mark Carney, but of course in leadership conventions, anything is possible, especially when the voting process was as complicated as this one. So we'll find out probably shortly after 6:30 who will win this race. Of course, if it goes multiple rounds, we might be here a while. But no matter what happens, we'll be here to break it down for you.